Gymnastics is a very complicated sport for very many reasons, and more often than not, the sport ends up giving us fairly tragic news about gymnasts either getting grievously injured or worse. But today, we're determined not to focus on that, since what gymnastics may not possess in safety standards, it makes up for in entertainment value. Let's count down a few of our favorite hilarious moments from gymnasts in the middle of trying to perform their routines. First up, Savannah Vincent. In this day and age, being famous is terrifying for multiple reasons, obviously, but very few reasons could be more terrifying than becoming a meme. With a camera pointed at you every time you try to move, it's hard to not have unflattering pictures of oneself end up all over social media. And the fact is, no one is safe. This is especially the case for people in sports, since they have a camera pointed at them consensually and for a good reason. This is why the internet can't even feel bad about laughing at the unfortunate images that arise from deep moments of concentration. Now, oh meme. Such was the case with gymnast Savannah Vincent, who became an overnight global meme after performing a very commendable trampoline routine in the 2012 Summer Olympics. Competing as a trampoline gymnast, Vincent probably didn't realize that the most important takeaway from her hard work and routine the next day would be the "oh" face she made mid-air. But that's how the story goes. When a person is falling or jumping, they're essentially challenging the forces of this world. And maybe it's gravity enacting its revenge, or simply just lack of focus, but controlling one's facial muscles and schooling them into complete neutrality is almost impossible. This often results in gloriously hilarious images from gymnasts and other sport players ending up on the internet for the world to look at. Vincent was no exception. In only a few hours, Savannah ended up a global meme, and images of her crafting her facial muscles into a hilarious O shape became the world's laughingstock. But it was all in good fun, as most memes are. Up next, Lyudmila Torasheva. As a very talented Russian gymnast, Lyudmila Torasheva is the last person you'd expect to see on this list. But even her many accolades, and we mean many throughout the European and World Championships in the 60s and 70s, could not save her from an unfortunate incident that, in hindsight, seems safe enough to laugh at. Funny sport-related events often have one thing in common: near-death experiences. We decide whether an event is funny enough to be talked about after finding out if the person at the center of the moment is unharmed. It takes a mere moment for a funny incident to become a tragedy. But while we're on the subject, let's talk about Torasheva breaking the uneven bars from her sheer raw power. Now, the broken bars. This incident, although lacking any potential for tragedy, is very fun because of this very moment. For those unaware, the uneven bars in gymnastics are a female-performed event. Two bars set 6 feet apart are uneven in height, and the gymnast in question usually has to swing between the two in increasingly complex and rule-specific ways. One bar sits at approximately 5.5 feet and the other at 8. You can imagine how scary those bars may seem to any regular person, but for performers who've been at these bars since young children, it's no big deal. And the case was no different for Lyudmila Torasheva, who attacked the uneven bars with flawless precision, determination, and unparalleled, pun intended, strength. Torasheva performed at the bars stunningly, and it was only after she landed that the bars gave out behind her. It was incredibly powerful to even witness, and if the smug face Torasheva made after realizing what she'd done was any indication, she definitely was proud of herself. Up next, Aly Raisman. Now a retired American gymnast, Aly Raisman had her fair share of fun in the competitions she partook in. However, this particular incident involving her can either be perceived as funny or embarrassing or both. As someone who's won several medals in gymnastics and was the coach of 2012's Fierce 5 and 2016's Final 5 Olympic teams, she's even been on the show Dancing with the Stars, where she won 4th position. So it's safe to say that this particular moment definitely doesn't keep her up at night. Now, the embarrassing somersaults. What moment, you ask? Well, we're talking about the 2012 London Olympics, where during her floor routine, Raisman managed to commit a blunder. Nearly the end of her gorgeous floor routine, Raisman probably thought she should take a risk and was gearing up for her somersault move. In the move, she'd usually jump, flip several times, and land on her feet. But in this case, whether due to stress or just plain bad luck, Raisman performed a laughable excuse for the move, completely screwing it up. She performed perhaps the worst somersault in the history of gymnastics. Everything about it, the stuttered start, the flimsy flip, the terrible landing, they're all indicative of just bad form in the games. If you'd looked at her in the moment, you probably wouldn't have even guessed that it was Aly Aly Raisman by just how sadly performed the move was. In its terribleness, though, people found hilarity. Since everyone knew Raisman was capable of much better and it was just a small moment in which she underperformed, the jokes landed as mere jabs. Up next on the list, Elena Zamolodchikova. Another moment that blurs the lines between tragedy and hilarity is Elena Zamolodchikova's bean flip disaster. It's pointless to wonder if actually getting her teeth broken during the fall and struggle would render the situation less funny, so let's focus on the events that actually made it happen. So Zamolodchikova is a 4-time Olympic medalist from Russia. She was even added to the International Gymnastics Hall of Fame in 2015. And if that wasn't enough to prove her credibility as a great gymnast, she was also one of the only women ever in the sport to land a double backflip on the floor. One other thing she was known for was her very complex and risky double twisting, which is exactly what led her to this incident. And now, the incident. Zamolodchikova is a risk taker. We've established that, and her entire career as a gymnast is a testament to the fact. So it comes as no surprise that she'd have a fair few moments for us to laugh at. And this particular one, while performing a beam routine in the 2000 Sydney Olympics. We see her going for another risky double twist, but it doesn't pan out the way she wants it to, and she just ends up grasping the beam from the bottom during her fall, instead of trying to keep herself upright on the top. The whole scene, in hindsight, is pretty hilarious, but it cannot be denied that it was terrifying watching her at the moment. Zamolodchikova was performing a very complicated move known as the Rolfova, and unfortunately failed. If she'd been any closer to the beam, she might have even lost a few teeth. Next, we have Paul Hunt. This next gymnast is known not just for a single funny moment, but for many, and throughout his entire career. Paul Hunt is often identified as what one might call a gymnast clown. Yes, let that sit with you. And you may have already heard of him, but we could not help but mention his legacy, one every gymnast enthusiast knows about. Hunt was a gymnastic coach and performer who, later in life, took his gifts concerning the sport and turned them into entertainment for thousands. For the longest time, he performed at the University of Illinois and even won many accolades for his talent before he took the mantle of a professional coach. Our incident or incidents in question begin the day he was teaching one of his female students how to do a backflip. This single encounter made the gears in his brain go into presumed overdrive since he came up with his genius idea and formidable legacy then and there. His genius idea was that watching a man do the complex and delicately powerful moves usually performed by female gymnasts in the sport would be incredibly entertaining and hilarious to watch. We can't say he was wrong for birthing that marvelous idea. Now, Paul's routine. So after that, Paul created a character he would carry with him throughout his professional life and named it Paulette Huntanova, Paulina Huntis, or Paulette Huntanova. This character, who usually went by either name, had a simple purpose. He'd be dressed in traditionally female gymnastics garb, which consisted of a leotard with a skirt attached, and would perform moves solely associated with women in gymnastics. Some days, he'd even adorn his hair with bows and ornaments. But here's the kicker. The routine would almost always consist of Paul performing these delicate and complex stunts before his final move, slamming back down or face down on the mat as hard as he could. Sounds painful. It probably was. But the entire point with the move was either to make people laugh or to passively support gymnasts who may not have had the best day of their careers. And that's all for this video. Do you remember any funny gymnastic moments? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed watching the video, be sure to leave a like and share the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications by pressing the bell icon to get notified every time we post a new video. And we will see you next time. Thank you for watching.